Hey, what's going on, people? Pride here, and we're back on Total War Warhammer multiplayer. So, of the factions currently available to us, the Wood Elves are my favorite faction to play, up there at the top with Bretonnia. I love Cav, I love Archers, and I love micromanagement. Female Glade Lord is a joy to use with the Arrow of Kurnus and the Prey of Anathrama, and just in general, they have tons of versatility and skirmishing options to choose from. There is something to be said for brute forcing engagements and rushing and overwhelming an opponent by getting in their face, but I love the feeling of using superior mobility to pick apart an enemy, take away each of their advantages one by one, and then strike that killing blow. And the Asrai can do this extremely well, better than a lot of other factions. So this build is all about quickly eliminating enemy mobility, so I get free reign with my Deepwood Scouts and my Wild Rider, and it definitely has some punching power with the Wildwood Rangers and the Asrai Spears, but no Lore of Life and no Treekin, so I'm not looking for a melee grind in this one. The Vampire counts, on the other hand, will be. They have Skeleton Chaff up front, plenty of Graveguard and Crypt Horrors, and some Fell Bats, supported by Isabella von Karstein herself, Vlad's waifu, and one of the most annoying legendary lords in the game. If you've ever heard her voice lines when you're spamming movement orders, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But she's going to be annoying in this game for another reason, because she's on a Hellsteed, which means she can consistently raise dead on top of my archers and tie them up in melee, which is going to cut down on some of that range DPS that I'm really going to need if I want to win this battle. Also has some Crypt Ghouls as well, which I think are a decent option against the Wood Elves because they're fast and they can quickly get in and around and behind my troops and get after my archers. Dire Wolves and Blood Knights also on the field to give the Vampire counts a little bit extra mobility. So the Wood Elves versus Vampire counts matchup is kind of a weird one. On the one hand, the Undead are hands down one of the best factions in the game. Raised Dead is extremely strong. They can heal, which is gigantic in this meta, and they can manipulate enemy morale and cause terror routes more effectively than any other race in the game. But I think they can struggle pretty heavily against the Wood Elves. Not necessarily against the type of build I've brought, but they really just don't have cheap enough bonus versus large to effectively deal with Durthu, Treemen, and Treekin all in one army, with Lore of Life on top of that. So the fact that Undead players have to play around that potential build really helps the Wood Elves if they want to experiment a bit. So Prey of Anathrama is going off now. That's going to be 22% missile resistance reduction for those Crypt Horrors, which means I'm going to start tearing into them with a bunch of my Deepwood Scouts. I have 5 of them in this battle, so that kind of DPS can quickly rip through a unit like the Crypt Horrors. Going to get them down to about half health. They're going to take a couple more volleys, and then he'll start moving. So he's moving his Dire Wolves and his Fell Bats to the flanks to quickly get at my archers. And getting them to effectively skirmish in this battle is going to be difficult because he has a lot of units that can shut them down quickly. Which is why my Wild Riders are going straight for the Dire Wolves. Going to try to get them off the field early on, make sure they can't get into my back lines, and start murdering my Deepwood Scouts because they can effectively tear them up in seconds. Wind of Death actually going off through my Deepwood Scouts is an interesting choice. Not a fan. Honestly, kind of a waste, I think. I mean, he saw them really lined up, and I think he got greedy, but they're not tied down in melee, so it was pretty simple for me to just move out of the way. And you'll also notice my battle line is staggered, so there's no chance Wind of Death could do more than take out a single one of my units. Gotta be very cognizant of that, by the way, especially when you see an enemy caster moving to your flank. They're probably lining up for a big Wind of Death. The Fell Bats descending from the skies being annoying, and the melee engagement has begun in earnest. Eternal Guard holding the line against Crypt Ghouls and Graveguard as he moves some more Crypt Ghouls to his flank. Getting torn up right now by my Deepwood Scouts in the back. Graveguard cycling into melee as well. And the Blood Knights now are looking to circle into my rear and finish off some of those archers. And he also has a free Dire Wolf in the back as well. And this is where you would normally have to make a choice, right? Like, which unit do I want to stop? But when you have a Glade Lord, you don't have to make that choice. The Dire Wolves are faster, and my Wild Riders can easily kill them, so they're going to go after the puppers and slaughter them in melee in a killing frenzy. He is going to lose micro on them, which will let me get the charge, but that should leave the Blood Knights free to get into my skirmishers, right? Wrong. Prey of Anathrama net ability, pretty fantastic bounce spell. Gonna root them in place and prevent them from moving while I get units in position to shut them down and get some volleys in on the Knights of Blood Keep. So that is going to prevent them from moving for the moment. It is also going to give me that 22% missile resistance reduction on the Blood Knights, so I do a little bit more damage to my skirmish fire, and then I can focus on getting my Asrai Spears over to that engagement and hopefully tie them down. Now, I am going to have to commit my Wild Riders here, which means they're going to take the charge from the Blood Knights, which is not ideal. Ideally, you do not want Wild Riders to be going 1v1 against Blood Knights, but I have already done some damage to them, and I have my Asrai Spears coming in to reinforce, and together, this combination is brutal, just absolutely deadly against enemy cavalry, especially backed up by my Glade Lord. Those Blood Knights are going to have a terrible time against all that armor piercing and bonus first large. So the Cryptors are getting into the back lines, and zombies are doing a good job of tying down some of my range units in the back, but I have pulled back some of my Deepwood Scouts and gotten them in a good position to continue firing in. Cryptor is going to get a nice rear charge off into the back of my Wildwood Rangers and Eternal Guard, but it's all for naught really, with those Deepwood Scouts providing the range support, going to tear through those pretty low armored Cryptors in only a couple of volleys. Isabella is for sure doing her part at the moment, continuously raising dead on top of my archers and actually buying time for the Crypt Ghouls to close into melee. If they get one attack off on the Deepwood Scouts, they will all be poisoned, but they're actually not going to close down in melee in time and catch up to the archers, which means, again, even though I'm taking a lot of damage on my archers, I'm still going to be able to fire in and do a lot of work with them. Eternal Guard murdering zombies as you would expect. Arrow of Karnas going off. Nice shot into the flank of some Grave Guard. But the main line for the vampire counts is beginning to crumble a bit here. What I've done at this point is completely eliminate his mobility, gotten his Blood Knights off the field, killed a lot of his Cryptors, which were also going to be a serious problem, gotten a nice charge into the flank of those Grave Guard with the Wild Riders, and now, without the Blood Knights, without a lot of the raised dead, because she's already raised, Isabella's already raised dead 3 or maybe 4 or 5 times at this point, she's going to have a very hard time catching up to my Deepwood Scouts. Now, especially when I use another net on her and shoot her to pieces, with all this fire pouring in, she's taken a lot of damage. She is one of the tankiest Vampire Counts Lords because of the, what is it? The Blood Chalice. So she can regen to full HP from half very quickly. It's a very powerful burst heal, but with that said, not sure it's going to help her out in this one as her Grave Guard are crumbling and the main line is disappearing under the weight of my Wood Elves infantry assault, and pretty much everything is gone at this point, and the entire army is going to crumble. So what I did there, and what I really like doing with the Wood Elves in general, is you focus on eliminating the high mobility threats one by one. Use that net to buy time for you to win engagements and come in to reinforce. One Wild Rider and one Asrai Spear unit together can take on pretty much any threat in the entire game and kill it quickly. And then the net itself can completely nullify the charge bonus of a unit like Blood Knights, which is a gigantic deal and can straight up win you games. So even though I think skirmishers can be a dangerous proposition against the vampire counts, even like in this game, definitely some units and tactics the vampire counts can employ to shut down your range units, I still think they can be worth it and be utilized pretty effectively in these kind of situations. So I actually have another replay I want to show you against the vampire counts, and we're going to talk more about the Wood Elves versus vampire counts matchup in that one as well. So yeah, that battle wasn't really long enough for me to consider making it a video by itself. I don't usually do 2 replays in one video, but it was a theme that I wanted to talk about, the Wood Elves versus vampire counts matchup in general. I could have done a Durthu and Treeman Ancient and Treekin build for the second battle against the vampire counts, because I think it is by far the most effective build you can use against them. They are very bad at dealing with single entity spam like Giants or Treeman Ancients. They just don't have a lot of units that can deal with it effectively. They have Blood Knights, sure, but they're 1700 gold. You can't spam Blood Knights, and you have no idea your opponent is even going to bring that kind of build. So to deal with that many Treekin, deal with that many Treeman Ancients and Durthu, is very hard for the vampire counts. But again, I wanted to focus on the skirmish builds because the Durthu Treeman Ancient build is not very micro-intensive, and it feels like really gamey, right? Like, one of the things I don't like about Total War Warhammer, I love this game, don't get me wrong, but I feel a lot of times the battle just completely won right at the start of the battle. You know you've outpicked your opponent, and it will take a miracle, or you have to screw up really badly for the other player to win the game, and that doesn't make me feel that good. That was a really sick Arrow of Karnas, by the way. Killed 5 Blood Knights there. So good start to the battle. We got Manfred von Karstein on a Hellsteed, rocking with the Lore of Vampires and the Lore of Death. Dual caster. Looking forward to seeing some more of those dual casters in Total War Warhammer 2. Or maybe even all lores rolled into one caster. That'd be pretty nice. But he's actually brought 3 Cairn Race in this battle, which is a dangerous proposition against the Wood Elves, to say the least. They are terrible against units that cause magic damage, and the Wood Elves have more magic damage causing units than any other faction in the game. If I had brought Treemen Ancients or Treekin in this one, those Cairn Race would have been absolutely useless. As it stands, I actually only have 1 unit on the field right now that causes magic damage, and that is my Glade Lord in melee. So he's going to Spirit Leech her in the face. So I don't actually have the best tools for dealing with the Cairn Race, except just charging them in the back, which will be the plan anyway. But I think the Starfire Shafts are also a good choice for the Vampire Counts in a lot of situations, because you can shred through armor, so they're better against Grave Guard and the shield block chance that they have. And they rip through Cairn Race in seconds. Saw another Blood Knight in the background there. My opponent has 2 Black Knights, 2 Blood Knights, so he has a lot of mobility, and he has Manfred on a Hellsteed. So definitely, again, lots of ways for my opponent to deal with my range units. And I'm going to shift over a lot of spears here. So you can see 2 Eternal Guard and a Asrai Spear unit. Moving over to my left flank to deal with the Black Knights and the Blood Knights that will soon be charging inexorably into my back lines. The idea there, of course, is to use the bonus first large and the armor piercing to shut them down, block the charges, brace against those cav charges, and if I kill all of the cav, the infantry that's on the field is really probably not going to be enough to carry the battle by themselves. I'm going to net this Blood Knight in the back, Arrow of Kurnus it, going to again kill 5 of them in that Arrow of Kurnus, and then unleash hell with 5 of my Deepwood Scouts, shooting into a single Blood Knight when it has that 22% missile resistance reduction on it, and then follow it up with a Asrai Spear, War Dancer charge. Those Blood Knights will have a terrible time in melee, and they're getting shredded at this point as well. Here comes the charge from the Black Knights. Wild Riders there to soak up that charge, and then Eternal Guard partially tying up those Black Knights, but they are getting their charge off here into the flank of those Deepwood Scouts. They will not have a good time, and I will have to pull my archers back and get them into a better location. But Blood Knights are already starting to crumble and taking a lot of fire. The Flag of Blood Keep is not keeping them in the fight for too much longer. There's just so much skirmish fire coming in that those Blood Knights are having a very bad time. And the melee engagement has gotten really blobby. He's actually super blobbed up. He'd really benefit a lot from getting one of his Cairn Race to go around and charge into the flank. And yeah, you can see I'm just unleashing hell with all my Deepwood Scouts. I've kind of gotten blobby in the melee engagement as well. By the way, I think I did misspeak. I think I said the Glade Lord does magic damage in melee. She only does magic damage from range with her bow, I believe. So, well, that isn't... And that's a cinematic looking shot, man. That looks awesome. Invocation of the Heck going off, trying to keep the Blood Knights in the fight. Don't think it's going to work. They're so close to crumbling completely at this point. And he has not done enough to shut down my Deepwood Scouts. No zombies are being raised in the back lines at the... Well, there's one. But he should be committing more there. I think he's trying to. But now I'm focusing fire on Manfred. And no Legendary Lord is going to be able to soak up that much fire and be expected to stay around for too much longer. So he can either raise dead and tie them down, or he can run away with Manfred, and he's going to choose to run away. So Manlet is moving away from the engagement at the moment, which will then give me more time to fire into the Graveguard. I really do like these Deepwood Scouts because they can fire from all directions and angles, basically. You can fire when you're moving away. You can fire without having to reposition. They're just very effective at continuously firing. That's what you want from your archers, right? If they're not firing, they're not doing their job. So I do think they're a very nice unit to use as my main skirmish force, and probably the one that I use the most, even though Starfire Shafts are good. Gaze of Nagash, gonna smack my Glade Lord in her face, and now I'm gonna try to repay in kind with the Arrow of Kurnus, which that one was frustrating. Look at that blob of Cairn Race. A good Arrow of Kurnus there would have demolished that entire blob, and instead it went for just the edge of that Cairn Race unit, killed like 2 models. Super annoying. I was kind of mad about that one. Finishing off the Black Knights here with the help of the Glade Lord. And things are going very well for me. His cavalry attack was stopped dead in its tracks. Completely shut down, which is what you want. If you are successfully shut down Vampire Counts or Bretonnia Cavalry in the early game and manage to completely nullify the charge bonuses of something like Grail Knights or Blood Knights, Black Knights, make sure they can't get directly into your skirmishers. Make sure they pay for every single charge they go into, then you're going to be in very good shape. And that's exactly how this battle is going. He has no options now for dealing with my Deepwood Scouts except to raise zombies. And if he gets near enough, which it's only a 50-meter cast range on the raised zombies, I believe, then he's going to get shot to pieces. So Manfred is in a bad spot. His cav is gone, and it's pretty much just going to be cleanup duty at this point. There's no way the vampire counts are going to win this battle in melee combat when I still have pretty much my entire line left, and all his cavalry is dead. So I really think the Wood Elves match up extremely well against high mobility factions. If you try to bring a lot of cav against the Wood Elves, 2 Asrai War Dancers with Spears, all the Eternal Guard, even the Wildwood Rangers are great versus cav as well. Not if they get charged, but in prolonged melee, armor piercing and bonus versus large is just fantastic. Those are fantastic tools for dealing with stuff like Blood Knights, for dealing with stuff like Bretonnian cavalry. So I do think this matchup oftentimes does favor the Wood Elves, and at least in my experience from a lot of the matchups that I've played Wood Elves versus Vampire Counts a lot now. Most of the time, I manage to win with these kind of builds. And that's, again, not even mentioning the Durthu, Treekin, Forest Spirit builds, which I think are... They can be fun to use. I love replicating the Lord of the Rings, March of the Ents kind of thing. It's beautiful to watch, super cinematic. But from a gameplay perspective, certainly not as much fun as these skirmish and mobility-focused builds that actually require a lot of micromanagement. Because with the Treekin, you throw them into melee and plop a heal on them, and you're just going to win the majority of your engagements against zombies and crypt horrors and pretty much everything the vampire counts try to throw at you. Not that the vampire counts have no options in that matchup, of course. Again, they're one of the best factions in the game. They can do stuff to kill Durthu, like bring 2 White Kings and the Red Duke and put Elsif on Durthu and just slaughter him. But for the most part, in these multiplayer games, 1v1s on default funds, I like how the Wood Elves match up against the vampire counts. You can see his Cairn race actually did pretty well in this game, just because I didn't have anything that did magic damage. But if I did, if I had 2 Treekin units, those Cairn race would have been pretty much completely useless. So I definitely would not recommend bringing those against the Wood Elves unless you're feeling particularly ballsy. Blood Knights did not even remotely pay for themselves in that one. And you can see my Wildwood Rangers did a lot of work. Hope you guys enjoyed these games, and I'll be bringing you some more Total War Warhammer content very soon. See you guys next time. Any Pride signing out for now.